Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show. On today's episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It, we are going to have the pleasure of interviewing Tato Corcoran, who is a 29-year-old, amazingly awesome, friend of mine from the San Francisco Bay Area. She is a full-time entrepreneur who actively owns, invests in real estate and small businesses in the greater Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. She started investing in real estate in late 2019, and to date, she has acquired 9 buy and hold units and flipped and wholesaled /wholesaled 6 other properties. Now, in early 2021, she co-founded Robot Inc. Marketing, a direct mail company that leverages handwriting machines to allow its customers to remain competitive in today's crowded lead generation space. Tato is focused on growing her real estate portfolio, her direct mail business, and is looking into acquiring other small businesses. Let's welcome her now. Thank you. Okay, so hi Tato. Thank you so much for joining us today on this, awesome podcast. I really appreciate you. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to start things off by asking you to please just tell us a little bit about yourself, and also please include something interesting about you that most people don't already know.
Ooh, definitely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Seriously, when you reached
My
out,
pleasure.
yeah, I was really excited. So appreciate it. So my thing that most people don't know about me is really easy. It's my name. So I have a very weird name, obviously, Tato, Tato. But my
I would say unique and amazing.
yes. My real name when I was born, I was supposed to go by Margaret Elizabeth, and my parents were going to call me Meg as a nickname. Margaret Elizabeth is like a long time family name. It was my grandmother's name, her grandmother's name. So my mom wanted to keep it that tradition. My dad didn't really like any of that, but was not really given a say. And so he called me Pumpkin Potato Head when I was a newborn. And that lasted until I was about 6 months. And then, long story short, it got shortened to Tato. And I literally grew up not knowing anything else ever since. Like that is my name. I don't know anything else. It's completely normal in my brain, even though it's bizarre to everybody else. But my name may as well be like Nancy. That's just what I know. And what's funny is that I think, especially this day and age, there's kind of some funky names going around, and so people don't really question it. And so they don't think to ask, like, "Oh, is that your real name?" So there's actually people I've worked with for years who find out for one way or another that I have a legal name, and they're like, "Wait, what?"
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's I don't think it's funky or anything. I do think it's a great name. One of my favorite parts about it, and this is like the truth, is that it's going to set you apart.
Yeah,
People
definitely.
will always remember Tato, whereas
Totally.
I may have a hard time remembering Nancy, for
Yep.
example.
Yep.
So,
Once you learn it, you never forget it. I always say that, which is a pro or a con depending on our first interaction. But
right.
anyways, so I was born and raised in the East Bay of San Francisco, just like you,
Yeah.
Alamo, Danville, what, exactly. Um, my parents have lived in our same house for 30 years. So I grew up in the same house that they still live in, which was a really awesome experience, and one that I think is kind of unusual this day and age. So that was
Very.
fantastic. I have a little sister and my 2 parents. And honestly, I just lived like a pretty normal suburban childhood, like completely vanilla. Like I was very privileged and never wanted for anything, got a great public school education, etc. But I always had hustle. Like even from a young age, I was like inventing ways to not necessarily like make money at a young age, but just kind of like make things happen. And then, long story short, went to a private college out of state for my freshman year of college that I really disliked. And
Mm.
so I moved home after my freshman year, and I was going to a local community college. And that was 2010, 11. And so we hadn't really recovered yet from '08. And so nobody was hiring. And the only thing I could think to do really was like be a waitress, and no restaurants were hiring. And so I got kind of discouraged, and I was like, all right, well, I love selling my stuff on eBay and Craigslist. I like give nothing away for free. I'm like the least charitable human ever. And so I was like, oh, I could totally do that for like some of my parents' friends. And so reached out to a couple of my mom's friends and was like, hey, do you want to clean out your closet? I'll sell all your stuff for you. And you can, I'll just take a small cut. And that caught on like wildfire. Like I actually couldn't believe it. And so next thing I know, I had a ton of business, and I kind of figured out through lots of trial and error that the money and margin actually wasn't in clothes. It was in like your everyday household furniture. So any like basic dresser, bed, couch, armchair, what have you, like there was a ton of margin there. And I lived in a community that was high enough earning that going about selling this stuff themselves, for our community members, like it wasn't worth their time.
They're not going to spend time on it. Yeah.
Yep. And the local consignment shop charged a 65% commission. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have no overhead. I can undercut the crap out of that. And so I put out advertising for my fee of 35%. And that was enormously attractive to everybody. I came, I did everything for you, picked it all up. I stored it. Basically, like once it left your house, you never heard about it again until you got it.
Did you now put it in storage? Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no. So it started, my parents have a 3-car garage. So I hit the point where you couldn't even walk inside. And so then I did have to get storage. Yes. I had to outsource a little bit. But for a solid like year or two, they were like so patient. They were just the best. Like they didn't have a garage for like 2 years.
Supportive.
They were just full of all of Alamo Danville's like crap that they were trying to get rid of.
That would drive me nuts as a parent.
Oh my gosh,
they love you a lot, obviously.
Yes, they do. It was the most fun I've ever had. Like it was just a blast. I would easily work like 10-hour Saturdays, Sundays, because that's when most people were coming and buying stuff on Craigslist. And I was just taking cash money. And at the time it was a lot, and it beat the hell out of the waitress job that I was trying so hard to get. I actually had one day, my most epic day was I had so much furniture coming from a client that it couldn't fit in storage or the garage. And so I pre-advertised it, had the moving trucks come down the street on a Saturday, and I had clients waiting to buy lined up down our street in their cars, and they were taking stuff off the storage or off the moving truck, paying me, putting it in their car and driving away.
Your neighbors are like, hey, what's going on here? It's starting to get crazy.
I know, it was so fun. Anyways, but that was when my entrepreneurial side like really manifested itself in a way that I knew I was like, okay, my life is like forever, gonna be different. With that said, I finished college, and as is fitting in the area where I grew up, I got a Silicon Valley corporate job. And it honestly more or less fell in my lap, and it was a fantastic job. And so turning it down made no sense.
Right.
Yeah. But it allowed me to experience like having a corporate job in my young 20s, meeting friends. I lived in San Francisco, lived kind of like that whole life, and it was great.
Very cool. But
after a few years of that, I was really like, I got that itch again. If you're a true entrepreneur, that itch never goes away. It's like nothing is ever going to satisfy you unless you're owning like the means of your own production.
Yeah, you're crushing it on your own. It's all you.
Exactly. And
I love that.
So I got that bug back, and because of where I'm from, you're from, like when people hear entrepreneur, they think like, oh, you developed an app. And so I got really stuck on like, well, how can I go work for myself, knowing that like creating the next Uber or whatever, like that doesn't align with me at all. I don't even know how I would go about doing that. And so I kind of struggled. Fortunately, my sister had relocated to Wisconsin, which seems really random, but my dad's from there and all my cousins live here. So she relocated here. She was getting married. And so we were here all the time for wedding stuff. And I wish I remembered like the light bulb moment that it kind of hit me, but I was like, oh my gosh, I could buy a house here. And then I was like, okay, well, what would I do?
Because you saw it's like they're affordable, right?
Exactly. Another thing that you grow up in the Bay Area thinking is attainable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what would I do with a house? Well, I could Airbnb it. Milwaukee's kind of a destination. And also at the time, this couple years ago, the DNC was slated to take place there, Democratic National Convention.
Okay.
Year. And so that was going to be a big money maker. So I'm like, and so it was like wheels were turning. And I'm the type of person no, this is not necessarily a good thing. But when I decide I'm going to do something, I do it, and then it happens, and then I make my whole plan, which is like not exactly the recommended formula, but it's how
It's great though, because you're actually taking action where most people are just sitting on the sidelines. Like, when am I going to get in the game?
Yeah, action has never been my problem. It's
And you can learn a lot, right? By that. Sorry to cut you off.
yeah. So anyways, I basically from that point, like within 4 weeks, I had a realtor and we were looking at houses, and I looked for a little bit, and then ultimately I found one, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to buy this one. And that was what started my journey as like a real estate investor, which has kind of unfolded and led to a bunch of other things. But that was the beginning of the journey that I feel like I'm on now. And that kind of like started what was going to be the next like 2-ish years leading me up to today. So that was like a very long-winded answer to your question. But
No, that's great though. It gives like all the background, and I love that story of you like flipping furniture. There's a guy, Ryan Pineda.
oh yeah, I love him.
Eh, Yeah, he's like talks about couch flipping. I'm like, I think I need to go do this. He's like, just made money hand over fist doing that. So I could just imagine you with all the furniture, and sounds like good times for sure. So I love that. And thanks for sharing it. Let me ask you this, please, if you don't mind, share with us one or more of your favorite successes that either were you're solely created or you were a part of joint venture or whatever.
Ooh, that's really hard. You know, honestly, so when I bought that first house, it taught me a lot right away. The primary lesson I learned being that because I didn't know better, I bought a turnkey house from a flipper via a realtor, using a 25% down loan and all the normal stuff. And it was like I got to like a week after closing, and I was like, oh, I just locked up like $70,000 that I really won't get back unless I sell the place, which defeats the purpose of having bought it. And that was like, could potentially be a huge fail, but honestly, I think ended up being my greatest blessing because it unlocked a world of me figuring out, okay, wait, that's a huge problem. Like, I can't just keep like laying down 70 grand
Right.
time over time. Like, I'm going to run out of money. So what do I do about that? And in order to solve that problem, I sought out various educational resources, the two biggest being Bigger Pockets for sure.
Yeah.
And then Jason Dree's coaching. And so I would say like, just finding those outlets for community education, connection, has been like, without a doubt, the biggest, like most impactful piece of my journey. So it's not really like a tangible success, but it's so important and like literally unlock the doors to everything.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then,
Well, can I just comment on that real quickly, because I'm also, a member of the Jason Drees coaching, and huge value there. It is, I mean, so incredibly helpful in the community. Is just amazing, and you're really, really, really involved in the community. So I've been wanting to, interview you for a few months now, right? But we've got to talk and get to know each other a little bit before this, and it is so great to see so many people that are, doing so well, and everybody is like positive and
yep.
willing to spend time with you, and you really can learn a lot and make some massive connections or massive strides real
Yeah.
quickly.
And I think for me, really like, um, there are only a couple people in my life who are willing to listen to all my rambles about real estate and my business and la 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 la. And really, those people are my parents, and they listen because they don't really have a choice. And
Yeah, captive audience, right?
right, like they care a ton. But it's hard. It's like it's not really a subject that my friends can relate to, or that comes up when dating or whatever, and so when I found that community, it was instantly a connection to people who are like completely on my same page. And you're like, oh my God, there's 80 people in a Slack channel who like want to talk about what I want to talk about. It's so great. And so you
It
can't
is.
help but throw yourself into it and like chat with everybody and want to meet with everybody. And now I run our virtual calls, which really just happened because I was like, oh my gosh, everyone here is so interesting. Like, I would love to volunteer a couple hours of my month to bring people on and like share with me and then everybody else, you know, kind of simultaneously. So I feel like, yeah, just finding that community of people who want to have the same conversations as you, it's like, it's so important.
It is, and I don't know where else you're going to find it. You know what I mean? I'm sure there are similar, but it is definitely incredible and unique. You know, so let me ask you this: what would you say is the most valuable lesson or lessons that you learned from, you know, that experience where you bought the house and realized you had to put down 70K? It ties up money for a while.
So a lot of lessons came out of that. I would say the first thing was that, you know, I tied up the money, like I said, and really the root of that problem was that I didn't have a strategy. I had an outcome that I wanted. I wanted to buy an asset that made me money, and that's fantastic.
Yes.
There's a lot of ways to do that. And, you know, I just went and did it. I didn't really think about how I should do it. And so that was probably the biggest lesson. Now I still like act and then think. I'm working on that, but I'm a lot more strategic about like where I'm looking or the numbers that I'm crunching or the outcome that I want, or, you know, fill in the blank. And then it also, like, when you're educating yourself prior to your first purchase, you're listening to Bigger Pockets, you're reading all the books, this and that. You always hear experienced investors say, you're going to take a punch to the face, and you're either going to come back for more or it's going to put you out of the game. And it's really hard to understand what people mean by that until that actually happens to you. And this house I still own, it's a fantastic house, awesome area, etc. But there have been a couple like really strong pain points that have like definitely caused me enormous stress, like tears, like moments where I'm like, wow, I totally understand why the vast majority of America wants nothing to do with real estate. Like I understand. Now that's not nearly enough to like take me out of the game, but it was definitely like, it provided me those first couple like experiences of the punch in the mouth metaphor. And like, I think that you have to learn those lessons. It's the price of playing the game. It just is. I personally have made every landlord mistake possible. It's like, you would think I didn't even read all the landlord books, which,
Right.
but like, it's kind of inevitable. And truthfully, every single mistake I've made, I would wholeheartedly go back in time and make them all again.
Yeah, and you know, I know that you're totally correct about all of that, and I also think actually doing something, you're going to learn so much more, even if there are massive failures. And again, there's that whole, well, hey, this is like paying for your education, you
Yeah,
know? And
exactly.
I think the whole thing is like, as long as we don't quit, we're not going to lose, right? So,
Exactly. The amazing thing about real estate is like, if you do it consistently enough and you give 200%, I have lost money and learned more lessons than any type of MBA or anything could pay for. And I still ended up way ahead. And I think a little bit of that is luck for sure, but a lot of it is like calculated risks and preparedness, you know? And so if I can learn while still making money, like, I literally don't know what else you could possibly ask for.
right. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Great point. And would you say a little bit of that also that helps you along the way is networking? And
Oh, without
that's
it,
another way that you're learning, right? So,
absolutely. And you know what? Whenever I talk to people who don't really understand like the whole like real estate like or investor community thing, or they don't understand what JDC is or whatever, the way I describe it is like, there isn't any issue, problem, question that could come my way that can't be answered, you know, through a phone call to somebody in this particular community. That's like the
mhm.
best way to describe it. And so knowing that, it's like there's nothing you can't do because you're kind of like the sum of the parts who you surround yourself with.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. I kind of, envision Henry Ford at his desk and he just pushes a button and has the person who has the answer for him come and tell him the answer.
I love that. Also, too, like the intro to your podcast, it's like you can't say it better. We all are standing on the shoulders of giants. And even like the giants that I feel I stand on the shoulders of would say the same exact thing about who they feel they stand on the shoulders of. And like by and large, this type of community is so humble. There's always a bigger fish. We all know that. We're all trying to learn. We're all trying to better ourselves. And so everybody, even if somebody's making $10 million a year, it's like mindset wise, we're all kind of, in the same place.
Yeah, and we're also trying to not, spin our wheels or, make the same mistakes, reinvent the wheel. So, it's huge. Let me ask you this. Would you mind telling us a little bit about some of the incredibly difficult or just difficult experiences that you've walked through and what you sort of learned from them?
Ooh, yeah. Um, well, so I've made a lot of like the classic mistakes that I think are almost kind of the hardest to learn because they're so obvious that you're like,
Mm,
how in the heck did I let myself learn that? Perfect example. I now have a property management company managing all of my doors. I wasn't doing that before.
that's awesome.
My turning point was I had a house, single family house for rent. This was this time last year. And a guy who seemed really awesome, single dad, reached out to me. He wanted to move in right away. Like everything was great. He sent me, I think I made him do a Zillow application, which is like not that thorough at all.
Mm.
And I took everything at face value. Like I didn't call his work. I didn't call his former landlord, nothing. I was just like, oh, this looks great. And I let him move in while his security deposit and first month's rent was still pending, like electronic payment. Now saying that out loud is brings physical pain. Like how could a relatively intelligent woman like myself make such a foolish mistake after all the books, all the everything? But in the moment, I don't know, it's just what happened.
Well, and you're trusting, right? And you're trusting typically when we are whoever we are, if we're, good people, then it seems like we see everybody else like that, but it's not always the case, right?
Completely. So that was a pretty big turning point, like lesson learned that really hurt of like, okay, there are certain things I have to delegate out, not because I don't have the time, but because like I can't be trusted doing that. It ended up costing me a ton of money, a ton of time.
I feel the same way, honestly. Like I should not be managing properties. I will make the same mistake.
Exactly. And actually what was crazy about that, he ended up being a federally wanted felon. The FBI was out.
Oh
He
my
was a very
gosh.
so so it made me feel a little bit better about myself, truthfully. But regardless, I was like, okay, like really the way to sum up that lesson is like fire yourself from things that you're doing to hurt your business. And that was absolutely one of them. Another instance, this was really sad. I had a gal who, again, I rented to, and through circumstances I don't really understand or know more about, she went into labor with a baby in my house and had the baby, and the baby didn't survive.
Oh,
So that was horrible. But also, again, like it kind of jolted me like, oh, shit really does happen. You don't think that's going to happen to you. Somebody just died in my house. And my first call was to my insurance agent to say, oh my God, like, is she going to say that she fell down my patio stairs? Like, I don't sound selfish about that right away. Of course, I felt horrible for her, but realistically, like, who's to blame there? I got very lucky. It was a horrible situation, and she basically, I don't know if it's fair to say she took ownership. I mean, nobody did anything wrong, but essentially there was no repercussion. She moved out a couple months later and went on her way. But I was like, I'm never testing that luck again. So I called him, I doubled every single insurance policy I had and bought an umbrella policy. So
smart.
Yeah, you just like, you have to pay attention to what's happening and react to it and pivot, how you need to. Trying to think what else. Gosh, I've made so many stupid mistakes.
Yeah, and I mean the first one definitely was a mistake. Second one, obviously, you didn't have anything to do with that. But I do just think that this is like normal. One of those things where it's hindsight's 2020. It's a lot easier to see, oh, I shouldn't have done that after the fact. But still, I applaud you and praise you for actually taking action
Right.
on your dreams. It's huge.
Thanks. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've learned too, just in the last couple of years of kind of going through this, journey is um, you have to carve out the path that seems most right for you and pursue that despite all the background noise and crap you're going to hear from others. And sometimes it's not even like, intended. But for example, I still struggle with this, but shiny object syndrome like gets the best of all of us, right? Of course. There's such a pro con to all of the awesome podcasts that are out there and consumable because I want to listen to every last thing. But my takeaway from every podcast episode is, oh shit, I could do that too. And then it's like I have a list of 35 things on my wall that I want to go do. And like, that's just detrimental.
Yeah.
So it's like, you have to like be confident in picking the one or two things you're really good at that you want to pursue for whatever reason and just move forward with that. And yes, everybody's always going to be in your ear about like, well, you really should do it this way, or, oh, Airbnb is way more lucrative or whatever it is. And then there's all the people back home who are like, why the F do you do that? When do you sleep? And you just have to like forge on and be totally okay with kind of like owning your journey.
Well, and I think, and I'm really, really glad that you brought that up because one of the first times I heard about Jason Drees was obviously it was on Bigger Pockets, and Brandon Turner was talking to David Green, and he asked him, hey, he brought up the whole, does this activity feel light to you, or these plans or this dream feel light, or does it feel heavy? I think with introspection, it can be incredibly difficult if you hitch your cart to a horse, and I don't want to use the word wrong, but a horse that is not actually a great fit for you.
Yeah.
It could be so hard to like walk away from that. I just recently did that, and um, you know, it's interesting through like, prayer and introspection and just thinking like, do I want to go this route or do I want to go this route? And keep asking, I keep asking myself that same question until it's like really, really clear.
Yep,
Um, yeah, but no, it's a great point. Absolutely. It's real easy to get sucked in like a thousand different directions, and
yeah.
I'm just horrible at it. I'm like, okay, I want to start a crypto mining company and I want to do Airbnb, long-term rental, apartment complexes, wholesale. It's like I can really only focus on, two things though. My main gig, which is my side hustle, which like, you shared with us earlier. I forgot. How did you phrase that again? Is that basically?
My W-2 job is my side hustle. It fuels my full-time pursuits, which is my business.
Yeah, I love that. And so I'm with you in that same boat. Where I have my 9 to 5, and then I have, real estate, which is right now just focusing on wholesaling. But that would be such a great book title, and I think like you should write that book.
Yes.
hmm Let me go ahead and just shift gears a little bit. I want to ask you a fun question. And so, this is basically it. If you were to be sent back in time to age 18, knowing what you know now, and wanted to fast track to where you are now, how would you fast track your success?
Such an easy question. Such an easy question.
All right.
I would let myself live on X amount per year. Right now, I let myself live on like $37,000 a year, even though I make like mid ones. And so I would figure out what that ratio is.
That's great. I love that so much.
I would figure out what that ratio is depending on where I'm at there. And I would use 100% of that remaining money to buy things that make more money. And that really is like the beauty of the simplicity. Like investing and pursuing financial freedom is simply the act of spending as much money as humanly possible on more things that make you money. Like it's literally that simple. It's not easy at all. It's difficult as hell, but it is so simple.
That's
Um,
great.
and I will say, like, the one thing that I feel really fortunate about is everybody's always like, oh, I wish I had started sooner. I started at about 26. And so I cannot complain. Like
No, that's pretty stinking soon.
I feel really happy and glad and have no regrets about that. But obviously I would have started sooner had I known, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
But it's great. I mean, it's it's just where you're gonna be at 36 is like, oh my goodness, or 46, and like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Whereas I didn't start my real estate investing until I guess a year and a half ago, so 45 and a half basically.
gosh, I
And
said you were 23.
yeah, that's right. No, that's true. So at about 20, 21 and a half, right? Where you but honestly, my story is I had a lot of fun. But I literally squandered like decades. You know what I mean? And now it's like with a family that's big and getting bigger. Um, I want to get financially free. I'd love to do that by 50. I know it's possible, and but it's just you're off to a great start.
Well, you bring up a good point though, and it's hard because sometimes I do have conversations with my mom or my dad where I'm like, oh my God, like why didn't I do this the second I left college? And they make a really good point. They're like, honestly, you went out there and you spent 21, 2, 3, 4, 5 having fun. You were a 25-year-old. Like you got an apartment, you had friends, you got drunk Friday, Saturday, you showed up to work Monday through Friday. Like that's what you should do, you know? And they're right. Like those memories, I wasn't going to get that opportunity back, and those memories I'll have forever. So, you know, you had a lot of fun. Could you have had less or fun during a shorter duration of time? Probably.
Right. Well,
But
that's a great point, and right along with that, that actually created who we are today,
yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
it's it's all valuable. Let me ask you this: if there was a key that unlocked or helped you to unlock success in your life, what would that be?
Oh, that is undoubtedly my family. I am
That's
very
great.
lucky. I was raised in a super, super tight knit family: mom, dad, sister, me. And we've always been really close. It hasn't come without its, you know, bickering fights and trials, of course, like every family.
It's
But
family. Yeah.
exactly. My little sister's 3 years younger than me. We've always been best friends, never had a phase where we weren't. And my
That's great.
parents had two totally different styles of like love, but always like I knew that I was 200%, supported. Like I never had a day questioning like, oh, is my mom or dad going to show up to my baseball game, or, you know, are they going to be upset if I take a risk and I fail?
I
My
mean, they gave up their whole stinking garage for
exactly
your furniture sales.
my parents beautifully. Like they gave up their entire garage for me to pursue this little business that I gave them zero cut for, by the way. While living at home for free and they were paying for college. So
They
I
probably were just loving that you're making this happen. They probably were thrilled, I'm sure.
they they have always known that I've had that like hustle, and they've always kind of like fanned that flame, which has been fantastic. But I mean, I feel especially able to take risks, um, because I know that if it goes miserably, you know, I'll have them to fall back on. And it not in like a, you know, daddy help me out of a hole sense,
Yeah.
but more of like, you know, if I make a complete fool of myself or I do something horribly wrong and I make a mistake, you know, I'm still going to have three people who love me no matter what, who are going to help me get back on my feet. And they're going to be super encouraging of me trying again. My little sister is married with a kid now. So technically it's five people, which is great. Um,
There you go.
the base is growing, which is awesome. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's really it. Like I couldn't even put any other type of success key that on the same pedestal as that.
Yeah, I love that. And I hope that that's my goal for our family is that we stay tight for life. There's no reason why you can't have that in that my kids are best friends and you
Exactly.
know,
Yep.
I had an epiphany the other day, which is like I really don't need friends because we could just make them.
That's so funny. I love it. Yeah, we had family dinner 7 nights a week, and just that alone, that was not only like so unusual, but also like that's 7 nights a week that you're sitting down and having a conversation as a family for at least 30 to 45 minutes. We also had a rule, no, we were never allowed to take friends on family vacation. Never. Family vacation was for family, and that was it. So
I
it's like,
think that's a good rule.
yeah, it's little stuff like that that just goes a really long way. And now I'm in a place where, I'm dating somebody, and if we, go down that path, like those are the couple things that are like super important to me, to carry on kind of in my own family. So
Yeah. And I guarantee you'll make it happen too. And those, what's that old saying? The family that eats together stays together. Um, to me, that's a big deal also, even when it comes to like, even maybe especially when it comes to like donuts or some sort of treat, brownies. I'm making sure we're all sitting down and we get those good feelings and we're hanging out and having fun. And then the kids go bonkers and break stuff in the other room afterwards. you know? So awesome. Thank you so much. Let me ask you this. Can you give us one book recommendation and one tech recommendation? You can do as many as you want, really, but
I mean, not to be the lamest person on your podcast, but Rich Dad Poor Dad. Only
impossible, by the way.
only because like that book I read, I guess I was like 25 turning 26. And that I'm not even sure how I came to read that book, truthfully. Regardless, it like fundamentally changed my life, my mindset, how I see things. Complete game changer for me.
It's a great book.
I always, whenever people ask like, oh, how'd you get into stuff? I'm like, I'll read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then honestly, you'll have a way better understanding, and then we can have a conversation about it. So
yeah,
that for sure. What else? I love Gary Keller's books. I think he's a really good writer and a really smart guy.
and it's super inspirational. It's like, holy mackerel, look what he's done.
Yep, absolutely. And then actually, wait, can I look really quick? I want to give one.
Yeah, take your time.
I want to give one unique recommendation that actually came from Danny Miller, who's in JDC.
Yeah.
It was fantastic and not at all about business or anything, but I think is just important. Algebra of Happiness by Scott Galloway. So Scott Galloway, if anybody looks him up, he's a professor and he also has his own podcast, and he's definitely become more known. He's a very successful businessman, but he's first and foremost a teacher. Anyways, he's written a couple of books and his are fantastic. His material is really, really good.
That's a cool name for a book. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
It's really awesome. And then tech recommendation. Ooh. Shoot. I use all the basic stuff. I'm an organizational freakazoid, so I live in Google Drive. Obviously have my Redfin, Zillow go-tos. Maybe Rentometer. I feel like people use, or Rentometer, however you say it.
Right. I like Rentometer. I like, you say potato, you say Tato, I say Tato.
But I feel like people know that. But that's really good in judging like a new area if you don't know the rents.
Well, and it could be it's a great recommendation because maybe just like myself, for example, I haven't even looked at that website for I don't know, solid 6 months or so. So it's just a great reminder.
I live on it. Let's see. I'm looking at if I have anything else exceptional. I really don't. So here's the thing. I am unique in that I'm less than 30 years old and I don't have an Instagram. I have a Facebook only for Facebook Marketplace, and referencing back to earlier in the podcast, I'm the least charitable person ever. So I'm always selling stuff. So I'm a little out of the loop when it comes to cool tech stuff, trends, etc. I missed the boat on Topo Chico by like a year, but I'm obsessed with it.
It's good stuff.
Oh my gosh, so good. I mean, it's not just literally anyone except for me. But I'm like recently like going and chasing it down in stores and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, nice. All that to say,
like, sorry, Kate, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, all that to say, I'm like, I am totally not the person to ask for like, what's the beginning of the next curve?
Right. Yeah, I hear you. And that is unique to be under 30 and not have an Instagram and just have Facebook. But that's exactly my wife's scenario, except for she just turned 30. So, there's that. But yeah, and I don't either. I need to get on Instagram for a project that I'm doing right now. But yeah, it's like I'm just so distracted already. I don't need to add to it.
Totally. I'm like, this isn't efficient in any way, shape, or form, and it's taking 40 minutes out of my day that I really need. It also, like, I don't know, this is kind of a girl thing, but girls compare themselves to people on Instagram, and I was
Guys do too. It's like, hey, this guy has I don't know, 1970 Chevelle, which like I love muscle cars. Now I feel like a loser because I don't have one. So, but yeah, and you know what I wanted to, well, actually, I'll ask that in a little bit. Let me ask you this: how can or how can our audience support you? Is there a particular type of deal that you're looking for, or any way they can support you?
Good question. Well, I love hearing from people regardless. I love connecting with people.
That's
Uh,
great.
right now, I am moving more into the small business space, looking to acquire laundromats and a couple other different types of small businesses. So,
That's cool.
yeah, I'm most recently on the hunt for people who have any type of knowledge in the laundromat space or any other small business acquisition space. So if that's anybody who listens to this, definitely hit me up. Would love to chat. I've struggled a little bit to find people who are familiar with the laundry space just because it's kind of random to say the least. But
Yeah.
yeah, but beyond that, I mean,
That's probably a great thing though. Like sounds like a blue ocean to me.
a little bit. Yep. And what's awesome is it's an asset class that's largely owned by people 60 years or older whose children have no desire to take it over. They very asking them to buy and they're totally willing to have a conversation. So it's been good.
That's so great. Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. You know what I wanted to, well, yeah, I want to actually talk about Robot Inc. marketing. So, can you share a little bit about that because it is awesome, it is unique, and so
So there is a fantastic guy named John Klingelholtz who's a part of the Jason Drace community. And John is exceptionally intelligent and really special. And he's a little quiet, so he flies under the radar. But way early on in us being in JDC, we were all introducing ourselves on a call, and he happened to mention that he builds handwriting machines for fun to help build his portfolio. And I like stalked the crap out of him. I was like, oh my gosh, like we need to, messaging him, like we need to chat.
it is very cool.
Yeah. And so we got on the phone, and I basically learned that he is kind of a software guy by trade. He's a builder. He just loves tinkering and kind of teaching himself stuff. Um, and about 10 years ago, when he and his brother started getting into real estate investing, John was like, gosh, we should handwrite stuff because we'd get a better response rate. But instead of doing it ourselves, we should build something that can do it. And he's gone through
Super.
a billion different iterations of what is now his modern handwriting machine. But anyways, he's built sort of a factory that allows them to do it at huge scale, and it's what's grown their business. I mean, they have like a ridiculously impressive portfolio and a wholesaling business, and it's just crazy. And I was like, why don't you sell this to other people? And he's like, honestly, I've never really thought about it. Also, that sounds really hard. I was like, well, I can figure that out so long as you can, have the tech side. And so I like kind of went home and I actually like pitched it to my dad. I'm like, what do you think? Like, I think we should partner with these guys to bring this product to the market.
He's like, heck yeah.
Yeah. And we made like kind of a formal pitch deck for them and him and his business partners, and they loved it. And so we were kind of off to the races. This was the beginning of 2021. And, the product was already developed, right? It's been what they've been using for a long time. What we had to figure out was like, okay, how do we sell it to people, allow them to understand what's been the biggest challenge is that there's a lot of options out there when it comes to direct mail of all varying types of quality. And it's really easy to be like, oh, well, postcards you can get for 40 cents each. And so I'm just going to send out a bunch of postcards. Well, postcards are so cheap because they have the cheapest response rate or the lowest response rate, right?
Mm.
So, you know, it seems like, oh, I want to send 5,000 postcards because I'll get a bunch of leads. Well, the reality is you'll probably get like a 0.5% response rate versus our product, hugely effective response rates because it's so unique. You know, our clients, you know, statistics vary, but on average are clocking in like 2.5 to 3.5% response rate, which is well above industry average. And so yes,
That's awesome.
our product is more expensive, but that's because there's a value there. So we've really had to figure out how to like allow our customer base to see the value and understand kind of what they're paying for. But we're well on our way now, and we have lots of clients, and I think we're processing like 20,000 pieces of mail a month or something.
Wow.
And you know, we're always getting messages from our clients about the deals they're buying or their calls they're getting. It's super exciting. It's super fun.
Yeah, and you know, I got the chance to actually meet, and he, you know, met with me for a little bit, and he's super nice, super cool guy, and I can't wait to actually talk with him again. I'm gonna get him on the show pretty soon here,
Awesome.
as whatever works for him, right? But and I wanted to say that yes, him and his brother, they started you know, finding deals with this robot,
Yep.
and now correct me if I'm wrong, you're using it as well to find deals, right?
Yep, exactly. We like to say we are our best customers. So yes, I do. I use our mail to find my real estate deals, and I'm also using them to find my small business deals, which has gone way better than I was expecting. Actually, my laundromat response rates, I have to retotal them, are ridiculous. They're like well into like 5%. So mail is really effective where you wouldn't necessarily think it would be, which is kind of so beautiful about it.
Yeah, and actually, I'm gonna you know, pick your brain a little bit more for what I'm doing on that later. But you know, it's great. I'm really glad that you know, that you shared that with us and with me, because I think it's super cool, you know, and obviously works very well.
At Robot Inc. Marketing on Instagram. Inc. Not like not like incorporated, but like
INK.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. And I'll throw the link to the website in the YouTube show notes.
Awesome.
Oh, my camera is getting funky. Last question: how can the audience connect with you and get to know you?
Well, as stated, I don't have much of a social media presence. So I am old school in that I like to email. So my email is just Tato Homes, Tato, HOMES @gmail. And that's the easiest way to get hold of me.
I love that. I really kind of wish that whenever I'm listening to podcasts and like, just find me on Instagram, and again, like I don't have it, so I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to happen. So
Using our Robot Inc. Instagram to stalk whoever I need to.
there you go. I love it. Well, thanks again, you know, so much, 1,000 times over, for meeting with me today. Sorry about my camera being funky, and you know, really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to, you know, more success for you and getting to know you along the way, you know. So,
So fun. Thank you. Thank you.
all right, you're very welcome. And so I'm going to go ahead and sign off to another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. And thank you all for listening / viewing. And that's all, folks. All right, bye. Hey, I would be remiss if I've always wanted to use that word if I didn't take a second to shout out Danville Jiu-Jitsu and Kickboxing. This is in Danville, California. If you're in the area, if you're interested in starting that journey, highly recommend that school. It is one of my favorites, and I've got the chance to train at quite a few different schools. So that again is in Danville, California. Danville Jiu-Jitsu and Kickboxing, established in 2012 there. So that's it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another amazing episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. Thank you so much for listening or viewing this episode, and I hope that you got a lot of valuable information, stuff you can take and implement into your lives. I know that I have, and I do only ask you for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. I hope you have a wonderful